Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, guys, I want to go over some things that I noticed while watching the Toronto-Carolina game, and also talk about some things from Elliotte Friedman's weekly column, 32 Thoughts. Before we get into some of the things that I noticed, it's worth mentioning the lineup changes from tonight's game. They moved Mitch Marner off of Austin Matthews' wing, they promoted Michael Bunting, and Matthews and Nylander are back together. And now that they have made this change, I hope that they stay with it for a couple of games, because there was nothing more frustrating than when Mike Babcock was the head coach, and I think you could just put a period at the end of that sentence and that would be it. But there was nothing more frustrating than when he would make an adjustment, it didn't work in the first shift or two that it was together, and then he would just immediately resort back to what the old lines were. Give it some time. And even though Sheldon Keefe used him as an opportunity to call out both Matthews and Marner earlier in the week, Nick Ritchie found himself on the fourth line here. You never want to force someone into being something that they're not, and I don't think that Nick Ritchie is the top six forward, and that's unfortunate, but in playing in a bottom six offensively sheltered role and by giving him some power play time, the Bruins were able to get a lot of value from him, and I thought that he played fairly well tonight against the Hurricanes in that same role with the Maple Leafs. And after looking at the numbers now after having watched the game, kind of confirms what I was seeing in that fourth line, that it was fairly effective, and Nick Ritchie threw a pretty big hit in the first period that ended kind of unfortunate for the Carolina player. He was kind of falling as Nick Ritchie was coming in and had already committed to the hit. He drove the net hard a couple of times. He put himself in some decent areas to score. Gonna have to see what that line can do over the next couple of games to see if it puts up some actual goals. The flow of this game was weird to me, because the Leafs went up 1-0 really early on, and the Hurricanes outshot them in that first period. But I thought that the chances were relatively close. They were 9-7 for the Hurricanes after that first period. But the second period starts, and the Carolina Hurricanes are still applying that pressure. They score the tying goal 1-1, and then it almost felt like every time the Maple Leafs were trying to pressure them in their own zone after that, they just iced the puck. They committed 4 icings after tying it 1-1. 2 with Jordan Staal out there, 1 with Derek Stepan, and 1 with Vincent Trocheck, and they won 3 out of the 4 ensuing faceoffs. It just didn't seem like they cared. Whenever the Maple Leafs were applying any sort of pressure, they just flipped the puck out of the zone, they took the icing, got reset, and won the draw. And after the second period had ended, it was already 3-1 Hurricanes, and it was just over at that point. I haven't mentioned Anderson just yet. He stopped 25 of 26 for the Hurricanes tonight, and I thought that he played well. When the Maple Leafs challenged him, when they had a couple of opportunities on the power play, he stood tall and gave his team a chance to continue building upon their lead. I mean, the numbers look good for him this year, and he was obviously beloved here in Toronto. I loved him. His first 3 years here were absolutely phenomenal. I thought he was a top 10 goalie in the NHL. The last 2 years there that you're seeing on the screen in terms of goals saved above expected were really challenging for Anderson, and the Leafs kind of turned over a new leaf last year where they were better defensively, and that didn't really seem to help Freddie too much. And we'll touch on that defense in a minute here. I'm glad that he's having success in Carolina, but I'm also glad that we've kind of moved past having to have those difficult conversations about him pretty much every other game. But moving on to something that I noticed while watching tonight, I want to talk about the Maple Leafs defensively, because I know everyone wants to focus on the 4 guys up front that make all the money there, but you have to believe between the Maple Leafs' offense and the offense has more of a track record of being at least good. They should bounce back, but the Maple Leafs defensively this year have been concerning. Up on the screen right now is a chart where the Maple Leafs rank in several different defensive stats in the 2019-2020 season, last year, and again this season. And I wouldn't say that that's just the North Division effect, because the North Division was a lot of things last year, but I don't think it lacked offensive talent. And if you'll accept an answer other than the team is just broken, I think I may have one as to why the results are so drastically different. And I noticed this while watching the game after Jack Hand had pointed it out during his intermission show that he does on Twitter, and I will leave his links in the description of this video. But the Maple Leafs had switched their neutral zone forecheck this year from a 1-1-3 last season back to what they were using in the 2019-2020 season, which was a 1-2-2. The 1-2-2 neutral zone forecheck kind of looks like a boat in the middle of the ice, where the F1 is going to try to apply pressure on the puck carrier and force him to get it out on his strong side. So let's say it's the left defenseman in this case. The left defenseman is either going to try to carry the puck out or dump it in. And the F3 and the D2 here, their job is to either cut that player off, take the puck off of him, or retrieve the dump in. And these two other players here, their job is to close the gap there so that the puck carrier doesn't have an outlet on the other side of the ice. Hopefully I explained that right. If I didn't, I apologize. I'll correct it in the next video. But in Jack's article, he explains where the two differ. The 1-1-3 allows teams to hold their blue lines a little bit better than a standard 1-2-2, but it also gives speedy and skilled players more freedom to hunt the puck and create counterattacks than the traditional trap would. And if you're a fan of a team that Barry Trotz has coached over the last couple of seasons, you'd recognize this really well. The Capitals did it in 2018, and the Islanders have done it for the last number of years, and they've been very, very successful with it. And obviously there's different variations to all of these formations that coaches use depending on the type of players that they have on their roster. Some of them are more aggressive and others are more passive. For our purposes, because we're talking about the Maple Leafs' defense, I want to talk about how the 1-1-3 allows teams to hold their blue lines a little bit better than a 1-2-2 would. Because the Maple Leafs defending the rush in past years, and again this year, as Jack pointed out during his little intermission talk, are not good. And if you were looking at the Maple Leafs defensemen who are good at holding their own blue lines or denying entries, TJ Brodie, Jake Muzzin, Travis Dermott, and even Rasmus Sandin in a limited sample size proved pretty effective at it last year. Morgan Rielly and Justin Holl, not so much. I tried to find some stats to compare it to this season, but I can't find any. Not even with all the subscription services that I pay for. And that's the one frustrating thing about being a hockey fan, is that the stats absolutely suck. If you're a basketball fan, if you're a baseball fan, you are spoiled with what you have, especially baseball fans with baseballsavant.com, where you can basically just look up the specifics of any given single, double, triple home run from like the last 8 years, and it'll even give you a video of it and tell you the weather from that day. But just having watched all the Maple Leaf games this year and judging by how many scoring opportunities they're giving up, yeah, they're probably allowing a lot of zone entries. But in taking a look at what it looks like, you can see how much easier a defenseman's job would be having 3 guys back there instead of just 1, while the other 2 forwards try to kind of play traffic cop and direct the puck carrier or the puck to one side of the ice. And you have to imagine, just by changing your neutral zone forecheck, that also changes the way that you transition from defense to offense. And if I could ask Sheldon, my question would be, why'd you guys change it? Is it to be more versatile? Is it to be different because all the other teams are trying to do this? Are you trying to prove a point? Like, what's going on? And if I could have a second question, it would be, is Jake okay? Because that does not look like the Jake Muzzin that we know and love from the last couple of years. And then this bit kind of surfaced earlier today from 32 Thoughts, the podcast, talking about the Amazon series and how it had certain effects on different players in the Maple Leafs organization, and how he believes that if the Maple Leafs were to have offered Zach Hyman a no movement clause as part of his contract, that he would still be a Toronto Maple Leaf right now. Even if you want to live in a world where this is true, and Hyman would have accepted an 8-year deal with a full no movement clause at $4 million a season with the Maple Leafs instead of the $38.5 million total that he got with the Oilers, the difference of about $6.5 million over the entirety of the contract, I still don't think it would have been a good idea to sign that player. Because by the end of his 7-year deal with the Oilers, he'll be 35 years old, turning 36. And out of the 448 forwards to play at least 1 game in the NHL this season, only 16 are active and above the age of 34, making over $4 million a year. If you want to go to 35 and up, that list shrinks down to just 10 active players in the NHL. And then if you want to take it one more step forward, because on an 8-year deal from the Leafs, he would have been 36, and there's only 6 active players in the NHL who are over the age of 36 and making more than $4 million. Could Zach Hyman have been one of the good ones that are still here? I don't know. And I'm sure that that was probably the deciding factor in why they didn't choose to re-sign him, because it was never a debate on whether we thought Zach Hyman was going to be great this year or even next year or the year after that. It's the 5 other years. And I don't know if I'm willing to take that bet, considering that he's had 2 major knee injuries and we don't really know what's going to happen with the salary cap over the course of the next 3 seasons and beyond that. I don't mean to end these videos dramatically. Everyone's just really upset and I don't really know what to say. So I guess the only thing that I can say is make sure to like the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And I guess that's the main thing, is that more is always on the way.